It's wonderful to have you all along this morning, and our brothers and sisters on Zoom, and also on the video. Well, we've got a wonderful program in store for us this morning. Very insightful meeting today, public talk, and of course Watchtower, all based on the Bible. To get our meeting underway, we'd like to start with a song of praise to our Heavenly Father, Jehovah. Our speaker this morning is local. It's Brother Phil McLean, and he's going to discuss with us life does have a purpose.
Well, I don't know if you had the chance to look at the sky last night, and finally we could see the stars. There was no rain, there was no clouds. See many stars. We could see the moon shining brightly, but unfortunately, due to the light pollution we have here in the Blacktown area, the view of the stars was very limited. But there was a survey or report done in the Houston, Texas Chronicle, and it was on a recent study of stars and planets. And notice what it suggested. It said that this is what scientists have revealed, there are some 300 sextillion stars. And this is 3 times as many as was previously calculated. So you're probably wondering, well, how big's 300 sextillion? Well, that's 3 followed by 23 zeros. So it's a number that we really can't fathom. And yet that's what they're saying is the amount of stars that are in our universe and planets. But with that in mind, think about the age of our Earth. The age of our Earth, they estimate, is around 4 billion years old, and the universe around some 13 to 14 billion years. Again, numbers that we find very hard to comprehend. So with that in mind, we think about the vastness of the universe, the age of the universe. We might think of our own lives and think, well, how insignificant am I in all of this? Well, if you have your Bibles there, open up with me, or your device, follow along with me in the book of Psalm, and this is Psalm 8. And let's have a look at verse 3 and 4, and notice what David here composed. Psalm 8, verse 3 and 4 says, "When I see your heavens, the works of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have prepared," and imagine David would have had a lot better view than us, because there would have been no light pollution around at that stage. Notice what he goes on to say, "What is mortal man that you keep him in mind, and a son of man that you take care of him?" So here David had similar thoughts to probably that we have sometimes as significance in the stream of time in comparison to the universe. So as we contemplate the wonders of life, we might want to know such questions if our life has a purpose, like, why are we here? Do our lives matter? So first of all, let's think about the earth. Does the earth have a purpose in God's arrangement? Well, again, I invite you to open your Bibles. Let's have a look at the book of Isaiah, and Isaiah chapter 40, and let's first of all focus in on verse 26. So that's Isaiah 40 and verse 26. It says, much the same words as David, "Lift up your eyes to the heaven and see, who has created these things? It is the one who brings out their army by number. He calls them all by name because of his vast dynamic energy and his awe-inspiring power. Not one of them is missing." So we can see that the universe, us, the world we live on, is a result of creation, of a creator. It wasn't something that happened by mere chance. And the Bible actually identifies this one. If we go down to verse 28, who did this? So it speaks there in verse 26, it talks about he is the one. He calls them all by name. So who is this one? Well, notice verse 28 says, "Do you not know? Have you not heard? Jehovah, the creator of the ends of the earth, is a God for all eternity. He never tires out or grows weary. His understanding is unsearchable." So here we see that we have a creator, and that creator is Jehovah. And when we see or we examine Jehovah's creation, we really see evidence of a powerful design. Just think about our solar system and where the Earth is located. And it's located precisely to support life. Thanks to advances in astronomy and physics, scientists have really been able to gain a deep insight into the merits of the spot that we have in the universe. To begin with, the solar system that we're in, the Milky Way, is in the right situation in the universe to be what they call a habitable zone. Why is that? Well, it contains just the right amount of, or concentrations of chemical elements that are needed to support life. Further out, these would be too scarce, and further in, they'd be too dangerous because of an abundance of potentially lethal radiation and other factors. I mean, say this morning we probably all enjoyed a bit of the sun, the nice heat from that, but it wasn't too much to be lethal for us. When it comes to the Earth and the Earth's orbit in our solar system, the Earth is about 150 million kilometres from the Sun. And again, this lies in a zone that is habitable for life. Why? Well, it's that right distance so we don't freeze and we don't fry. And it's also too a nice circular path, so it means that the Earth remains roughly the same distance from the Sun year round. Well, what about the Sun? Well, many scientists refer to it as the perfect powerhouse. It's stable, it's the ideal size for us, for our Earth, and it emits just the right amount of energy. And many refer to it as a special star. And you probably notice that the Sun appears larger than the stars we see at night. Why? Well, that's because of the distance that we are to it. But just think how powerful our Sun is. At its core, they say the Sun is, the temperature is about 15 million degrees Celsius. So imagine if I took this pin, you see the head on that pin? I don't know if you can see it. That's how small it is. But if we were to take a piece of the Sun's core that size, we see our image on our board, we couldn't stand safely within, so the red dot is us here, Seven Hills. If we couldn't stand safely within a distance of 140 kilometres from that pin. So it really shows what a heat source that Sun is, but how, again, we're in that right distance to be able to have the effects that we need to help us survive. What kind of energy does our Sun emit? Well, again, this is what scientists tell us, that our Sun every second emits enough energy equivalent to the explosion of 100 million megatons of TNT. And you're probably going, well, what does that mean? Well, the most powerful nuclear bomb ever tested here on the Earth has the explosive equivalent to 57 megatons of TNT. So it really helps us to appreciate how powerful the Sun is. And then we move on to the Moon. The Moon, its diameter measures just over a quarter of that of the Earth. So compared with other moons in our solar system, our Moon is relatively or unusually large in relation to the host planet. So is this just a coincidence? Well, it seems unlikely. Just think of some of the things the Moon does. The Moon is the principal cause of ocean tides, which play a vital role, obviously, in the ecology of the Earth. And the orbit of the Moon around the Earth is so precise that ocean tides can be given years in advance to accuracy. The Moon also contributes to the planet's stable spin axis. So without it, without our Moon, at the size it is, the distance it is from the Earth, that rotational orbit it has around us, our Earth could just wobble. It could fall over, it could come off its tilt. And we know this would be catastrophic to us, and we wouldn't be able to survive. And when we come to the tilt of the Earth, again, we can see that it's in just the right way. It's tilted in a way that really brings things around again, it helps us to have life. The Earth's tilt is 23.4 degrees. And what does this mean? Well, we notice what one book said, The Rare Earth, Why Complex Life is Uncommon in the Universe. Talking about our Earth, says our planet's tilt axis seems to be just right. So this helps to moderate temperatures and allows for a wide range of climate zones. And if we just think of that theme of just right, the length of day and night, again, is just right for us. And this is because of the Earth's spin. If the speed was slower, obviously the days would be longer and sides of the Earth would bake while other sides of the Earth would freeze. If it was faster, well, we know then, again, our days would be shorter, but this speeding up in the spinning would cause relentless gale force winds and other harmful effects. So we can see that our earth has been created, put in that place for life to be able to survive. So we can see just from looking at those three areas, the sun, its relation in the universe in relation to the earth, our earth and our moon, how we can see that they've been created with a purpose. Well, what's another way that we can see that the earth has been created with a purpose? Well, this is the way it's designed to renew the environment. And we'll just focus in on two areas today, two cycles. The first is the water cycle. You know, water is essential to life. I don't know about you this morning, but I got up and I ground my coffee beans and then I ate my coffee beans. Nah, we didn't do that, did we? If you got up this morning and you made a coffee, we needed to then use water, pull a shot, and then we were able to drink it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be eating coffee, would we? So it really shows the importance that water has in our life. And that's just one example, and coffee is very important. None of us can live a few days without water. The water cycle distributes fresh, clean water around the planet. And there's three stages, and you can see this on our image. So we can see that the solar power lifts water into the atmosphere by evaporation. Condensation of this purified water produces clouds. The clouds in turn form rain, hail, sleet, snow, and they fall to the ground, ready to start that process again of evaporating, thus completing the cycle. So that's a very basic, but that's how the water process works, or the water cycle process. So here's an interesting point. How much water is recycled annually? Well, every year the sun lifts up by evaporation over 400,000 cubic kilometres of water from the Earth's ocean and seas. So 400,000 cubic kilometres. Again, what does that mean? Well, according to estimates, that's enough water to cover the Earth's surface uniformly to a depth of 80 centimetres. So that's everything on the Earth to 80 centimetres. Or to fill 160 billion Olympic-sized swimming pools. So now we start to get the idea of how much water is recycled annually. And you know, all this happens and we're not even aware of it. We don't hear about it. We don't see it. Well, we see the rain and the snow, but we don't see the other bits, do we? And it all happens efficiently. The next cycle is the carbon and oxygen cycles. So we need oxygen to live. We need to breathe it, don't we? We need to take it in. And what do? We give out carbon dioxide. But there's countless millions or billions of humans and animals that are doing the same thing. So why doesn't our oxygen run out? Well, again, as shown in our diagram there, we'll keep it quite simple. It's the process of the cycle, the oxygen cycle. We have the process called photosynthesis, where the plants take in carbon dioxide that we exhale, and they use it to and energy from the sun to produce carbohydrates and oxygen. And we know too, if we have a look at our latest page on our jw.org site, talks about the ocean, and a large part of the ocean plays in this too, with the plant life that's in the ocean. Obviously, we need to let out that oxygen, and by doing this, we keep that cycle going, don't we? And because of this, then we can breathe, and all the vegetation and these things happen. Again, they happen efficiently, quietly, and cleanly. So again, we don't see these things happening, but they're happening around us. So it really shows in a marvelous way, with purpose, that our Earth has been designed, and particularly to renew itself. And this Earth, or this planet we live on, the Earth, was created to be a permanent, beautiful home for mankind. But notice what some have said. Some scientists have proposed various scenarios by which the Earth could be destroyed or rendered uninhabitable, sometimes called existential risks. These include natural disasters such as asteroid or comet impacts, supervolcanoes, the death of the sun, or global warming. They may also include man-made catastrophes such as nuclear war or bioterrorism. Well, what does the Bible say? That's what we're interested in. Well, turn with me to the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 18. And let's see what the writer of Isaiah was inspired to write. So Isaiah 45 verse 18 says, "This is what Jehovah says, the creator of the heavens, the true God. the one who formed the earth, its maker, who firmly established it, who did not create it simply for nothing, but formed it to be inhabited. I am Jehovah, and there is no one else. So you notice what it said there? A couple of points. It was firmly established, and it would be formed to be inhabited. So we can see by that that our Creator won't allow the earth to be destroyed by man or any natural disasters. Psalm 104 verse 5 says, He has established the earth on its foundation. It will not be moved from its place forever and ever. And we know that this was Jehovah's original purpose, and it hasn't changed. Ecclesiastes 1:4 highlights that the earth remains forever. So there's numerous Bible accounts that back this up. So what does that mean for us? Why does it matter? Why does it matter what the Bible says compared to what man says? Well, belief that the earth will eventually be destroyed has caused some to plunder its precious resources. It's caused others to lose hope for the future and live only for today. So this can lead to a life of very little or no purpose at all. But if we believe that we can live forever on earth, we're more likely to make decisions that will benefit us and our families even into the distant future. Well, that really shows the purpose for the earth. But what is then Jehovah's purpose for mankind? Well, again, if we look at how we've been created, the marvelous way, we look at many different things that our body has, indicates that we were created with a purpose. And we could spend all day talking about our body and how Jehovah's created it in such a marvelous way. But today we'll focus on one area, and that's the brain. So when we think about the brain leaves many in awe. The brain is a product of DNA. It's been described as the most complicated object in the universe. Even the most advanced supercomputers look very primitive compared to the 1.3 kilogram pinkish grey mass of neurons and other structures. One scientist said that the more they know about it, the more magnificent and unknowable it becomes. So what is your brain and my brain's functions? Well, here's just a few of the things our brain is responsible for. Automatic behaviours like breathing, heart rate, sleep and temperature control. Fight or flight responses such as stress response. Keeping our organs working as expected. Memories and emotions, movements such as balance and coordination. Sensory processing, vision, hearing, smell, touch and taste. Speech and language, thoughts and decision making. So our brain's probably doing quite a lot of these things now, and we have no idea. It's just happening automatically. That's the way that we've been designed. Our brain's job is to send, receive, process signals through our central nervous system. Our brain also identifies signals from inside our body, like pain, temperature, how fast our heart is beating. It interprets or translates this information so we can understand and associate meaning with what's going on around us. So it does quite a lot, doesn't it? And they're all the things that we probably don't think about, but think about some of the other things our brain does that we may have a bit of control in. It enables us to laugh, to cry, solve puzzles, design and build a house, listen to and enjoy different types of music, landscape a garden, use our imagination, look up at the night sky with a sense of reverential awe. Yes, we have the ability to be creative, to enjoy beauty, and to stand in awe at the amazing world around us. What else does our brain help us to do? Well, let's turn to the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27. Genesis 1:27 says, And God went on to create man in his image. In God's image he created him, male and female he created them. So the passage there shows that we've been created in God's image. So because of this, we've been endowed with unique qualities. Well, what qualities are these? Well, just think of some of our Creator's personality traits: love, justice, and wisdom. These are all things that we are able to have the potential to reflect in our life because of the way that we've been created. We've also been created as free moral agents, and this enables us to choose right over wrong, express love to others in a variety of ways. And above all, we've received a spiritual capacity, a natural desire to learn about our Creator and his will for us. So unlike animal creation, humans are capable of knowing and worshipping our Creator. So how can that help you? Well, the more we learn about our Creator, Jehovah, and imitate him, the more we live in a way that he intended us to live. As a result, we experience more joy in life, along with genuine satisfaction, inner peace, and contentment. Well, we think about when Jehovah created us with a purpose, and that purpose was for humans to live forever here on the earth. As we read earlier in Isaiah 45, verse 18, Jehovah created the earth with a definite purpose, and he created it to be inhabited. How do we know this? How do we know that God had created the earth to be inhabited? Well, if you still have your Bibles open to Genesis chapter 1, just go down a verse from verse 27, and let's have a look at verse 28. Verse 28 says, Genesis 1:28, further, God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and become many, fill the earth and subdue it, and have in subjection the fish of the sea and the flying creatures of the heavens and every living creature that is moving on the earth. So Jehovah placed the humans, the original humans, Adam and Eve, in a beautiful paradise, the Garden of Eden. He assigned them to care for the earth, populate it, and extend the paradise. But it wasn't just in the Garden of Eden, but the entire world, the entire earth was to become a paradise, filled with righteous humans who would cultivate and take care of it. And Jehovah too intended to have a loving relationship with Adam and Eve and with all of us. And again, the Bible shows this for us. Just have a look in verse 29 and 30. We see here that these ones were instructed what they needed to do on the earth, how to look after it, where they could eat from, and how they were to look after the vegetation, the animals, and things like that. So Adam and Eve had the prospect of having everlasting life before them, as long as they chose to obey Jehovah. So that brings the question then, well, why is the earth not paradise now? Well, as we mentioned, we were given free will. Adam and Eve were given free will, and they misused that gift. Adam failed to cultivate love for Jehovah, and as a result of that disobedience, Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, and they eventually died. Romans 5:12 says, and it really shows us why we're imperfect, why we've inherited that sin. It says, that is why just through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because they had all sinned. So unfortunately, because of that, we all inherited imperfection and death. So is that the end of it? Well, Isaiah 55:10 and 11 shows that Jehovah's purpose never changes. Let's turn to that, Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 10 and 11. We can see how it is nicely illustrated for us. For just as the rain and the snow pour down from heaven and do not return there until they saturate the earth, making it produce and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So we've already talked about these cycles. We have the water cycle, the oxygen cycle. We know they happen continually. They don't stop. And then notice what it goes on to say about Jehovah. So my word that goes out of my mouth will be, it will not return to me without results, but it will certainly accomplish whatever is my delight, and I'll have sure success in what I send it to do. So the passage really shows us that this was Jehovah's original purpose. It can't fail. Jehovah can't lie. By using that illustration of the natural cycles, really shows that his purpose has been put there, and it is going to happen. Soon he will remove wickedness and restore the earth to obedient mankind. And again, the Bible highlights this for us. Psalm 37:10, 11 and verse 29. Just notice some of the points that it mentions. Mentions the wicked will be no more. You will look at where they were and they will not be there. The meek will possess the earth. They will live forever on it. Revelation 21 verse 4 mentions that death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. These things will have passed away. So we can see that's Jehovah's original purpose. And we can see through his word and the way that we've been created, the way that the universe has been created, that life is going to continue here on earth forever. So what does this mean for us then? What does this mean for you and me? Well, it really shows that God's purpose can give meaning to our life. You probably noticed that people in the world, they engage in all sorts of pursuits in effort to find meaning in their life. They pursue pleasure, wealth, or fame. And what usually happens? Well, they become disappointed, don't they? King Solomon in Bible times was one who did this. He was in a unique position. Solomon could well comment on how to find happiness and meaning in life. He was blessed with extraordinary wisdom, enormous wealth, and kingly authority. He was able to make a pursuit he was able to make a careful search of human pursuits, including the quest for riches and prominence. But notice what Solomon said. Let's turn to Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13. He was recorded this. This was his findings when he had done all these things. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13. It says, "The conclusion of the matter, everything having been heard, is fear the true God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole obligation of man." So what does that mean? What does that verse mean for us? Well, these words outline the most rewarding and noble human endeavour. Let's break it up and see what we can take from that verse when it comes to giving our life to Jehovah and the purpose that we have in this, or what his purpose means for us. Fear the true God. So this might not seem appealing at first, fearing God. Some might think that, why should I be afraid of him? But this fear is a healthy disposition of heart. We might not think of one who is terrified of enraging a harsh master, but of a child who is eager to please a loving father. Notice what one reference work says about this fear of God. It says, the attitude of reverence and the awe that his people show to him because they love him and respect his power and his greatness. Such attitude moves us to submit to God's will because we love him and we know that he loves us. And this wholesome fear is not just a feeling, but it's manifest by actions. Well, how so? Well, notice what the verse goes on to talk about. It says, keep his commandments. So fear of God moves us to obey him, and it makes sense to give him our obedience. Why is that? Well, just think, Jehovah made us. He knows what's best for us. You know, if I bought this phone and it didn't work properly, would I go to a rival phone company to see how I could fix it? No, I would go to the manufacturer of this phone because they know the best way to fix it and the best way to use it. It's the same too with Jehovah. Jehovah has our best interests at heart. He wants us to be happy, and his requirements are designed to promote our well-being. Our obedience to Jehovah and our love for him and his commandments really reflect our love, his love for us. And then the final part of that verse, this is the whole obligation of man. So these words really highlight an important reason to fear God and obey him. Doing so is our obligation, our duty. Jehovah is our creator, so we owe our very life to him. We also owe him our obedience. When we live as he wants us to live, we're fulfilling our obligation. So what then is the purpose of life? Well, put simply, it's this. We're here to do God's will. There is no better way for us to find meaning in our life. So your life will truly have purpose if you choose to live it in harmony with what Jehovah purposes. Despite us being descendants of Adam, we can enjoy a relationship with Jehovah. Do you remember our opening song, Our Joy Eternally? Well, the theme scripture that was based on was Psalm 16 and verse 11. Let's read that. That's a final scripture, Psalm 16 and verse 11. Notice what it says. It says, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence is abundant joy. There is happiness at your right hand forever." So if we choose to use our free will by wisely obeying God and doing his will, we'll find meaning and satisfaction and purpose in our life. Psalm 37:34 in part reads, "Hope in Jehovah and follow his way, and he will exalt you to take possession of the earth." Yes, when Jehovah fulfills his original purpose for the earth and for mankind, we'll be able to enjoy a purposeful life forever.
Thanks very much, Brother McLean, for helping us to see that, yes, indeed, life does have a purpose, and what a wonderful purpose it is. We'd now like to invite Brother Katrupi to the platform, and he's going to conduct the Watchtower study for us.
think you forgot your pen here, Brother Phil. Well, we'd like to welcome you all along to our Watchtower discussion this morning. To take us into this part of the program, we'd like to invite you to join in singing song 135, Jehovah's Warm Appeal, Be Wise, My Son. For our discussion this morning, it's entitled Show Insight and You Will Find Success. So that is a very tantalising offer, isn't it, to have insight and success. Our theme scripture is from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 20, which says, "The one who shows insight in a matter will find success." So what's our focus today? Well, it's for us really how showing insight can help us to deal successfully with challenging situations. And we all face those in life, don't we? So to have insight, to know the best way to deal with these things is a real beautiful gift that we can receive from Jehovah. So let's examine now, as we go into our article, how we can really be helped in this way. We'll invite our reader, Brother Doden, to read paragraphs 1 and 2.
Have you ever been treated without the respect that you felt you deserved? Have you ever been misjudged or wronged by someone? Or have you ever faced a situation that frightened you? If so, you likely know how challenging it can be to respond in a positive way. Thankfully, the scriptures reveal a quality that can help us in these and many other circumstances: insight. Insight is the ability to see into a situation, to look beyond the obvious. It allows us to understand why something may have happened or why someone may have acted in a certain way. As a result, insight can help us to act wisely, sensibly. For example, it can help us to control our lips and to know when to keep silent. It can help us to keep our anger in check and overlook transgression. It can also help us to accept advice and correction. When we show insight, we not only please Jehovah, but also benefit ourselves and those affected by our words and actions. That is especially the case in situations where we may be tempted to respond rashly or show uncontrolled emotions. Let us consider 3 Bible accounts that illustrate how insight can help us to remain humble, calm, and fully reliant on Jehovah.
So paragraphs 1 and 2, our question, what is insight and how can it help us? Get Brother Labraga right down the back there, thanks.
Insight is the ability to see beyond the obvious. It helps us to respond wisely in challenging situations. It also enables us to control our emotions, accept advice, and also act in a way that pleases Jehovah.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Brother Jerry. Sister Shepherd, please.
Insight also helps us to accept discipline and correction. In Proverbs 19:20, it says, "Listen to counsel and accept discipline in order to become wise in your future." So we really benefit when we apply those words, and it benefits ourselves, but it also pleases Jehovah.
Yeah, very good. And Sister Yola Hub, please.
And also can help us to control our lips and to know when to keep silent.
Yeah, very good. Sister Yongshin Lim, please.
I also love the thought in Psalm 4:4, "Be agitated, but do not sin. Have your say in your heart upon your bed and keep silent." This shows that Jehovah understands our feelings, but he wants us to pause and think before reacting. So insight gives us the pause. It helps us remain calm and trust Jehovah instead of acting rashly.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks. And Sister Crider, please.
And when someone mistreats us or disrespects us, it can be challenging to respond in a kind way. And often we're tempted to say things that we later regret. But having insight can help us to control our tongue and act wisely. And this is brought out in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. When words are many, transgression cannot be avoided, but whoever controls his lips acts discreetly.
Yeah, very good. So it's a very powerful tool, isn't it? So we're going to look at 3 accounts that will really help us in this endeavour to remain humble, calm, and fully reliant on Jehovah. So let's have a look at our first section here. Respond with humility rather than with pride.
To be truly successful, we need to reject pride. Insight can help us to do so. How? Consider the example of Naaman. He lived in Syria, a nation to the north of Israel. Naaman was a prominent man, the chief of the Syrian army. However, he suffered from a terrible skin disease, leprosy.
Paragraph 3, who was Naaman? Okay, I'll have young Desi, please.
Naaman was a man who lived in Syria. He was a well-known but proud man and the chief of their army, but he suffered from an atrocious skin disease, like in 2 Kings 5 verse 1 says. He was a mighty warrior, although he was a leper.
Yeah, very good. So this is the first example we're going to look at. Well, let's have a look at paragraph 4. Thanks, Brother Dom.
Naaman's wife had an Israelite servant girl who told her that there was a prophet in Israel who could cure her husband's illness. Naaman could have thought, can a lowly slave girl from an enemy nation really tell me anything useful? But Naaman showed a measure of perception. Instead of proudly dismissing all that she said, he humbly took her words seriously. He got permission from the king of Syria to go to Israel in search of a cure for his illness.
Paragraph 4, how did Naaman show a measure of perception? Thanks, Sister McLean.
Well, no doubt having leprosy, Naaman would have tried many things to heal himself. So when he heard that he could be cured by a prophet in Samaria, he sensibly looked beyond the words of a lowly slave girl and humbly followed her direction to go see Elisha.
Yeah, very good. Okay. So that would have been a very big thing for somebody in that office to take on. Okay, well, let's find out a little more in paragraph 5. Thanks, Brother Dom.
Naaman arrived at the court of King Jehoram of Israel, hoping to be cured of his leprosy. Jehoram, however, thought that the king of Syria was just trying to pick a quarrel with him. When the prophet Elisha heard about this, he asked Jehoram to send Naaman to him. Things did not turn out the way Naaman expected. Elisha did not even come out of his house to receive Naaman or to speak with him. Instead, Elisha sent a messenger to tell Naaman what he needed to do to be cured.
Paragraph 5, our question, what happened to Naaman when he got to Israel? Thanks, Brother Denzel.
When Naaman arrived at Israel, and he was hoping to be cured of his disease, but he was disappointed when Elisha told a messenger to tell Naaman to go wash 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored. And it happened, and his leprosy was cleaned and cured.
Yeah, very good. So this trip to Israel, did Naaman just up one day and decide to go? What did he have to do to actually make this trip, and what happened behind the scenes here that affected the king there in Israel? Somebody fill us in on that? Thanks, Brother Galea.
This wasn't just from Naaman's point of view, just a drive down the road, so to speak. It would have been quite a lengthy journey with a lot to prepare. He took his entourage with him, and he's going to seek a cure from a people that he's been killing and conquering and taking into slavery. So there's already a lot of bad blood and bad tension. So when King Jehoram sees this, noting the history between these people, he just sees it as a pretense for further war. Clearly, very stressful and difficult times. So for Naaman's part, it really was a lot of perception, hope, and even a bit of faith that he could be cured from his leprosy.
Okay, thanks. Brother Finney, please.
We'll notice that he really felt that he was a man of some substance. He took gold with him. He took 10 changes of garments. So no doubt, apart from feeling like a proud person, he wanted to be treated well. He looked forward to that rather than what he was told by not even the person he should have been meeting, but just to go and do something. It was rather demeaning for him.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Brother Crider.
And to get a letter of permission from the king of Syria, I mean, there was no good blood between the two nations. So to go to him to get this letter of permission to travel to cure his leprosy was a big thing in itself.
Yeah, so that sort of gives us a sense, doesn't it, of how serious Naaman was taking this whole episode to get cured. So for him now to be treated the way he was, how did that make him feel? Just to recap that. Thanks, Sister Villarino.
When he saw that the king didn't see him, he went to Elisha. Elisha sent a messenger. So Elisha said, go wash 7 times in the Jordan and your flesh will be restored and you will be clean. So he even didn't see him. He was a very powerful person. So it wasn't being a shock for someone maybe not that humble. So he had to exercise humility.
Yeah, very good. So just to reflect on that for a moment. So his expectation is here, isn't it? And his reality is somewhere down here. So this is a lot to take in. So let's look at this further in paragraph 6. Thanks, Brother Don.
At first, Naaman did not react well to the messenger or to the instructions. He became indignant and went away in a rage. Why? Perhaps he felt that he had not been treated with the kind of respect that he deserved as a high-ranking army officer. In addition, Naaman may have felt that Elisha's instructions showed a lack of respect for Syria. Whatever the case, Naaman was ready to give up on being healed and return home. However, his servants showed insight when they begged him to reconsider. Naaman wisely set aside his pride and humbly followed Elisha's instructions. As a result, he was healed.
Okay, let's get a reader for 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 13 and 14. Thanks, Brother Khalil.
His servants now approached him and said, My father, if the prophet had told you to do something extraordinary, would you not do it? How much more then, since he only said to you, Wash and be clean? At that he went down and plunged into the Jordan 7 times, according to the word of the man of the true God. Then his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little boy, and he became clean.
Okay, so first of all, the A question. What may have caused Naaman to react with pride to the message's instructions? Thanks, Sister Wadwani.
Yeah, he did not react well to the instructions. He became very much indignant and he went away in rage. He must have thought, I'm up there and he's just a lowly man. What's he doing? Things like that. So he even thought that his wasn't treated well.
Yeah, he had a letter from the king. This is how you treat me. It's a lot, isn't it? Thanks, Brother Philmon.
Yeah, at first he was focusing on the obvious things, so he was high ranking, so he thought that he deserved more respect. And also on the scriptures that we read, he mentioned about his serious rivers way better than the Jordan River. So he thought that his country was getting disrespected as well. So those things made him to not have insight. He was more focusing on the obvious things.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and Sister Barlow, please.
And he put a lot of effort into making the journey, not only getting the letter from the king, but he went to see the king of Israel, who then told him that, well, I can't help you. I'm not the guy you should be seeing. So Elisha steps in and then he's, given him a bit more hope. He's been directed to the right person, but then Elisha just sends out someone even lower than himself to give him instructions that are going to really help him be cured.
Yeah, very good. Could you put yourself in that situation and feel the things that Naaman might have been feeling? Very, very real, isn't it? But the B question asks, how did Naaman's servants show insight and with what result? Okay, thanks, Brother Villarino.
Yes, they showed insight when they begged Naaman to reconsider. As verse 13 shows, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something extraordinary, would you not do it? How much more then, since he only said to you, wash and be clean? So they make him really appreciate that the instructions were very simple, and he really should be humble and follow the instructions. And then we know in verse 14 that the result that was that he was cured.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Thanks, Brother Crider.
Not only was he cured, but his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little boy. So the effort paid off.
Yeah, very good. Now, what does this tell us about Naaman? Because here he is, he's hot and bothered, and now some words come from his underlings. What does that show us about his... Thanks, Brother Bisanelli.
There was something missing with Naaman, and that was humility. So, as the paragraph says, he said that he had to set aside his pride and humbly followed Elisha's instruction.
Yeah, very good. So in the end, it wasn't missing, was it? It was right there, importantly. Very good. So is there a lesson in that, do you think? Thanks, Sister Villarino.
What I like about this case is that he was the servant and he was a young man, because he said, my father. If the prophet said to you, do something complicated. So he was really humble. And because he was humble, even he listened to many people, but also to this servant. So we can learn that we can learn from everybody, and humility can save us of many, many problems.
Yeah, very good. So don't judge the council. Thanks, Sister.
For the lesson for us can be that maybe someone my age, a young elder comes up and tells me I've got a problem. Am I going to actually shoot the messenger, or am I going to listen and be blessed as Naaman was in the end?
Yeah, very good. So, and Brother Ibanez, thanks.
It also teaches us that pride and hurt feelings can make perfectly sensible people walk away from the very help they need. And that's the danger that the article is pointing to.
Okay, so let's have a look at paragraph 7 and just sort of wrap all of this up.
What can we learn from this account? We show insight when we look beyond the obvious, which could include outward appearances. We also show insight when we do not allow our emotions to control us. Insight can move us to be humble. In effect, we admit that we do not have all the answers. We may need help from others, especially from Jehovah. Naaman was not yet a worshipper of Jehovah. Still, he showed some insight by humbly listening to others, his wife, Israelite slave girl, his own servants, and most important, Jehovah's representative, Elisha. Naaman was able to look past his hurt pride. In the end, he made a wise decision that led to success. Before we respond to a matter, such as when we have received scriptural counsel that we do not agree with, or theocratic direction that we do not understand, should we not pause to consider whether what we plan to say or do reflects pride or humility?
Okay, let's get a reader for Proverbs 22, verse 4. Thanks, Sister Bisanelli.
The result of humility in the fear of Jehovah is riches and glory and life.
Nicely read, thanks for that. So the question on 7, and we've also got the picture to consider here, what can we learn from Naaman's experience? Thanks, Sister Doden.
Well, Naaman was able to look past her pride, and he made a wise decision that led him to success. So for us too today, we don't allow our emotion to control us, and that will move us to be humble.
Yeah, very good. Some other lessons as well. Thanks, Brother McLean.
Naaman also showed insight when he listened to others. So he listened to his wife, the Israelite slave girl, and his servants as well. And we can see that nicely illustrated in our image. We see there is older brothers being counseled by a younger brother, a younger elder. Then we also too, as we move across, that he's getting some advice or maybe some points that work well in the public witnessing. And then finally, he's getting direction straight from the governing body on one of our broadcasts. So we can see really the lesson we can learn is that the counsel might come from any different source.
Yeah, very good. And Sister Jasmine Cox, please.
And with Naaman, maybe very little of the instructions that he was given made sense to him personally, but he was able to look past that and still accept the counsel. So for us, when we receive direction or instruction, it may not make sense to us. At the time, we may not agree with it, but it's important that we look past it like he did, and we'll have a very successful outcome.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks. And Sister Christina Abigail, thanks.
So we can learn from this account that insight can move us to be humble and admit that we do not have all the answers and we may need help from others, especially from Jehovah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and Sister Valencio.
So we have to learn how to see beyond the obvious. So things happening like this, we have to pause and consider whether our thinking will reflect a pride or humility. As what the read scripture says, the result of humility in the fear of Jehovah is riches and glory.
Yeah, excellent. So some really powerful points we can take away from that beautiful example. Respond with calmness rather than with anger is our next section. Let's have a look at paragraph 8. Thanks, Brother Dom.
Insight can help us to remain calm and avoid responding to frustrating situations with anger. Admittedly, that is not always easy because we can be justifiably upset by the unkind or unjust words and actions of others. Consider how David and Abigail showed insight during a tense situation.
Okay, so paragraph 8, the question, in what circumstances may we find it difficult to remain calm? Let's have young Isaac. I'm sure this is not true for you, but...
It can be hard for us to stay calm when someone upsets us or they are unkind to us.
Yeah, very true. I'm sure we all can relate to that. Thanks, Sister Hannah.
And on the study note of Ephesians chapter 4 verse 26, it says that it is not wrong for the Christians to feel anger because Jehovah and Jesus both express anger in response to wickedness and injustice. But their anger is always governed by righteousness and perfect judgment. So Paul warns us that letting anger, don't let the anger fester from one day to the next. And in Jesus warns also his disciples not to continue to be wrathful for someone because prolonged anger may lead to bitterness, grudges, and divisions in personal relationships and within the congregations. So, Paul offers practical counsel to help Christians resolve problems, just like says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26.
Yeah, very good. So that preamble in this paragraph brings us to the example of David and Abigail, and we're going to look at how they showed insight. So let's read paragraph 9. Thanks, Brother Dom.
Picture the scene. David and his men are living as fugitives in the wilderness of Paran. While there, they kindly protect the shepherds and the flocks of a wealthy man named Nabal. When sheep shearing season comes, David sends messengers to Nabal, wishing him well and humbly asking for any provisions that he can spare. But Nabal shows absolutely no gratitude for all that David and his men have done for him. He responds very rudely to David's request, even insulting David and his men.
Paragraph 9, our question, how was David treated by Nabal? Okay, thanks. Brother Eli Gallo, please.
While being on the run, David and his men protected Nabal's shepherds and flock. When the time came to leave, David asked Nabal for any provisions to spare, but Nabal rejected this request and even insults him.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we'll have young Sister Desi.
1 Samuel 25, verse 11 read, Who is David? Do I have to take my bread and my water and the meat that I butchered for my shearers and give it to men who come from who knows where? This shows that Nabal treated David and his men unkindly, even though they had looked after his shepherds and his sheep. David even sent a message wishing him well and asking for provisions, which David and his men deserved. But instead of treating them with kindness and granting their wishes, Nabal was rude and unappreciative.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Sister Kryler.
David also chose his words with care and respect. He used polite terms and forms of address. He referred to himself as your son David, perhaps a respectful acknowledgement of Nabal's greater age, and yet with all this respect and kindness, he was insulted by Nabal.
Yeah, very good. Well, let's find out a little more. Thanks. In paragraph 10, Brother Dom.
If you had been in David's situation, how would you have felt? It is not hard to imagine why David became very angry. He was a man of strong emotions, and in this instance, he got so angry that he wanted to kill Nabal. In fact, David was on his way to do just that when he was intercepted by Nabal's sensible wife, Abigail. How did Abigail show insight? She discerned that David was a good man despite his extreme reaction, so she did what she could to help him to control his anger. She brought him a generous gift and humbly offered some wise advice. David showed insight by paying attention to what Abigail said, recognizing that her words reflected Jehovah's view on the matter. As a result, David calmed down and avoided making a serious mistake.
Let's get a reader for 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 32 and 33. Thanks, Brother Daniel Lee.
At this David said to Abigail, Praise Jehovah the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me, and blessed be your good sense. May you be blessed for restraining me this day from incurring blood guilt and from taking revenge with my own hands.
Nicely read. Thanks, Brother Daniel. Our question, and we've got the picture to consider here too, how did both David and Abigail show insight? So let's just break it down. Let's talk about Abigail's insight first of all. Okay. Thanks, Sister McLean.
Abigail knew David to be a good man, who understandably was angry with how he had been treated. So she acknowledged to David that her husband was a senseless or stupid man, not worth listening to. So by her words and actions, offering gifts and taking the blame herself, Abigail wanted to prevent David from acting in anger because she knew he would end up with blood guilt if he took revenge.
Yeah, very good. What was David planning to do up until this point? What was his next step in response to Nabal? Thanks, Brother Stuart.
He was going to kill Nabal.
Yeah, he was going to kill Nabal, but he was also going to do much worse than that. What else was he going to do? Thanks, Brother Hamilton.
In 1 Samuel 25, particularly verse 22, David says, May God do the same and more to the enemies of David if I allow a single male of his to survive until the morning. So he was going to go to the residence and wipe everyone out.
Wow, yeah. So we really appreciate the need for insight, don't we, that Abigail gave. Now, what about David's insight? How do we see that? Thanks, Sister Bethia.
David showed insight by recognizing that Abigail's words reflected Jehovah's view of the matter. When we are filled with anger, we may become blinded. However, second part of Proverbs 19 verse 2 says, And the one who acts rashly is sinning. It reveals how acting before thinking can lead to as terrible as to sin. By restraining ourselves from being overwhelmed by rage and viewing the matter through Jehovah's standards, we can prevent ourselves from doing something we would regret later on.
Very nice. Thanks, Sister Bethia. So just give some attention to the picture. What do we see happening here? So it's a bit of a bird's eye view. Thanks, Sister Villarino.
We can see what in 1 Samuel 25, 23 to 21 says. 31 says, Abigail very humbly just bowed down to David. She didn't cause this, but she realized that humility was going to help David to see the reality. So we see Abigail here with all the presents because she brought many, many things to him. And on the other side, we see David like being shocked by a woman that humbly came to make him to realize that he needed to have insight or think about what he was going to do. So this display an example of, for me, again, is humility from Abigail, and the response of David also was humility.
Yeah, very good. Do you think it would have been easy for Abigail to do what she did? Brother Kreider?
No, but she was obviously a spiritual woman and very courageous, and she knew how to get to David's heart because she spoke to him about Jehovah, and she knew he would listen because it was Jehovah who was basically talking to him. In that beautiful verse in verse 30, it says, "When Jehovah has done for my Lord all the good things he has promised, and he appoints you as leader over Israel." So she understood the channel. She knew he was going to be the king of Israel, and she showed an incredible amount of insight in doing so.
Yeah. So if you think about the situation, if no insight was shown, the catastrophe would have unfolded, and the whole household would have been slaughtered, and everything that followed. So how important was insight? And then we think about David's insight. Thanks, Sister Ben.
If we look at the scriptures quoted in 1 Samuel 25, verse 32-33, it's mentioned that David see beyond the obvious. So David's not pay attention on Abigail's action and also the generous gift that she provided to David to soften his heart, but he see it as a Jehovah's loving provision to stop him to acting foolishly and maybe causing bloodshed.
Yeah, very good. So again, another powerful lesson in the value of insight and how it really is, if used properly, can be so beneficial. So let's see what we can learn from this account as we read paragraph 11.
What can we learn from this account? Showing insight can help us to respond peacefully to a matter, even if we have a legitimate reason to be angry. It can help us to consider the consequences of our words and actions. When David was reminded of Jehovah's thinking, he was able to get his anger under control. If something angers or frustrates you, reject the temptation to respond thoughtlessly. Turn to Jehovah in prayer and give yourself time to seek his thinking on the matter, which will likely help you to calm down.
Okay, let's get a reader for Proverbs 19, verse 11. Okay, we'll have Sister Willoughby Barlow.
The insight of a man certainly slows down his anger, and it is beauty on his part to overlook an offence.
Very nicely read. Thanks, Sister Willoughby. So question 11, how can showing insight help us when we are provoked? Thanks, Sister Cox.
Well, even if, like David, we have a legitimate reason to be angry, we know that we don't have a reason to sin. So by us showing insight, we can look beyond the immediate upset emotions and see what will result from how we might act or speak in that moment if we were to be unkind in return. And by reflecting on the outcome and seeing if it would line up with the outcome that Jehovah would want, it helps us to make a wise decision and respond peacefully and humbly overlooking the offence.
Yeah, very good. And Sister Ashley Lim, please.
So insight allows us to consider Jehovah and how he views things, and through prayer we can ask for his spirit and help, and it will help us to slow down and gain a measure of control of our emotions, which will help us to see beyond the surface and be quick to listen and slow to speak, as Proverbs says, and avoid unnecessary anger by considering all aspects of a situation and not jumping to conclusions, and really letting Jehovah's thinking shape how we respond.
Yeah, very good. So think about this next time we feel angry about something, and we all do at different times. What's our first step? Thanks, Brother Kim.
David was clearly treated unfairly. Then he reasoned, and his his conclusion to kill the Nabil for punishment. But it wasn't wrong because 10 days later, Jehovah took his life. But he moved further to kill everyone. That was wrong. So we can learn from that when we get the mistreated or unfairly treated, we better to leave those matter to Jehovah's hands rather than we just make the justice ourselves.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and Brother Ibanez, please.
Usually, when something makes us angry, the instinct is to respond immediately. But insight gives us the brief pause, enough space to ask what this will cost me. What does Jehovah think about this? And what are the consequences if I act on this emotion right now?
Yeah, very good. And even further than that, what's behind the other person's thinking or actions? Well, we better move on. Let's have a look at the final paragraph in this section 12. Thanks, Brother Dom.
Just as Jehovah used Abigail to help David see beyond the situation, he can use others to help us gain insight into a matter. So, before responding to a frustrating situation, consider talking to a mature Christian, someone who can help you to view matters more objectively. On the other hand, if you have the opportunity to help a friend in such a situation, can you imitate Abigail? Can you help your friend to see Jehovah's perspective on the matter? Jehovah will surely bless your efforts to help others show insight and remain calm.
12, our question, how can others help us show insight and remain calm? Thanks, Sister Hamilton.
Proverbs 20 verse 18 speaks of the benefits in seeking help and being given skillful direction, or otherwise put, be given wise guidance. So this wise guidance can be given to us by other mature Christians who we can confide in, we can open up to about our challenging situation. And so just as Abigail helped David, they may help us see things from a different perspective. And the result then is that we refrain from responding on impulse and on emotion, but we successfully gain insight, and this keeps us calm.
Yeah, very good. And what position might we find ourselves in on occasion? Thanks, Sister Valencia.
In other occasions, we might have the opportunity to help our friend, like Abigail. So helping our friend to see how Jehovah's perspective on the matter will help. And surely our effort to do it, Jehovah will surely bless our effort and help others show the insight and remain calm.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. All right. Well, that brings us to our next section. Respond with confidence rather than with fear. 13. Thanks, Brother Dom.
At times, we will face situations that make us feel afraid. Insight can help us to see beyond our fears by remembering that any frightening events in this world become insignificant next to Jehovah's awesome power. Jehovah can help us in any situation, even those that seem hopeless. That lesson shines through in the life of the prophet Jonah. He was a spiritual man, but he needed more insight to succeed in a difficult assignment.
13. How can insight help us to see beyond our fears? Okay. Thanks, Brother Denzel.
Insight can help us to see beyond our fears by remembering that any frightening events in this world become insignificant next to Jehovah's awesome power. And also, this quality allows us to trust that Jehovah can help us even when a task seems impossible to complete, like Prophet Jonah when he faced the challenges in Nineveh.
Excellent. Well, let's have a look at 14 and find out a bit more about Jonah.
Jehovah gave Jonah a daunting assignment: to go to Nineveh and proclaim a message of judgment to its residents. How would you have felt if you had received that assignment? The arduous journey on foot from Israel to the Assyrian city of Nineveh would have taken Jonah about a month. The Assyrians were known for being aggressive and violent. Nineveh was even called the city of bloodshed. Instead of accepting the assignment, Jonah decided to run away.
14. Why may Jonah have been reluctant to accept the assignment Jehovah gave him? Thanks, Sister Labraga.
because at this point Jonah was evaluating the situation from his own perspective. The assignment that he had been given was a daunting one. It would have required an arduous journey on foot that would have taken about a month, and he was to face people that were known for being aggressive and violent.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to the city of bloodshed. Imagine thinking about that for a good month. It's a lot, isn't it? Well, let's find out more as we look at 15.
Jonah was on the run when Jehovah reminded him of his power by miraculously saving Jonah's life in a spectacular way. Jonah learned a lesson. He began to see beyond the fearful aspects of the assignment in Nineveh and to focus on the fact that Jehovah could protect him from any danger. When Jehovah gave him a second chance to accept the assignment, Jonah did not hold back. He went to Nineveh, where his ministry was a great success.
Let's get a reader for Jonah chapter 2, verse 6 to 9. Okay. Oh, we've got lots of takers here. Thanks, Brother Albert.
To the bottom of the mountain I sunk down. The bars of the earth were closing upon me forever. But out of the pit you brought up my life, O Jehovah my God. When my life was ebbing away, Jehovah was the one whom I remembered. Then my prayer came to you into your holy temple. Those who are devoted to the worthless idols forsake their source of loyal love. But as for me, with the voice of thanksgiving, I will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation is from Jehovah.
Nicely read. Thanks, Brother Albert. So our question, how did Jonah develop greater confidence in Jehovah? So we've gone from running away, and now what's changed? Thanks, Sister McCulloch.
So we can see here that when Jehovah gave him a second chance to accept the assignment, Jonah didn't hesitate, did not hold back. He went to Nineveh, where his ministry was a great success.
Yeah, very true. Thanks, Brother Wilson.
After being saved from certain death in extraordinary manner, Jonah realised that Jehovah could protect him even against the city of bloodshed.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful, isn't it? So see how the focus changed? When he ran away, it was focused on the horrible things that might happen to him. Now the focus or the insight leads him to what conclusion? Thanks, Sister Villarino.
Now his focus was on Jehovah, and how a wonderful Father when Jehovah gave him a second chance. So if someone has that possibility or give us that possibility, he ran away from the sovereign of the universe, run away. Jehovah said, no, you come back and you do what I'm saying. He taught him a lesson, but he gave him a second chance. And now with the second chance, he realized Jehovah can do anything. Yeah. So he changed his focus.
And it's interesting to think about that little sojourn in the belly of a fish as a lesson being taught, a very powerful lesson of trust. So what do we learn? Let's have a look at 16. Thanks, Brother Dom.
What can we learn from this account? We do not want to let anything, especially fear of man, hold us back in our worship of Jehovah. Showing insight helped Jonah to see past the challenges of his assignment and to focus on Jehovah's support. Similarly, we want to look beyond our fears and reflect on how Jehovah has helped and protected us in the past. We can also meditate on the examples of brothers and sisters who have successfully faced fearful situations or have cared for challenging assignments by relying on Jehovah. May we show insight by fully trusting in Jehovah and helping others to do so too.
Okay, paragraph 16. Let's get a reader for Proverbs 29, verse 25. We'll have the young sister here.
Trembling at man is a snare, but the one trusting in Jehovah will be protected.
Very nice. Thanks, Mohena. Okay, I didn't recognise you're not sitting with your parents. Okay. So with that in mind, we have the question and the picture to consider. How can insight help us in fearful situations. Okay, we'll get the brother over on the side here, please.
Just as showing insight helped Jonah to see past the challenges of his assignment and to focus Jehovah's support, it can help us to look beyond our fears and reflect on how Jehovah has helped and protected us in the past.
Yeah, very good. And as we look at our picture, what's the lesson there for us? How does that relate? Thanks, Sister Schmidt.
Well, here we can see actually a young person going to school and probably seeing all the fellow students all around, and they know that he's one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So he could be fearful of being frightened of being approached the wrong way and not knowing exactly how he's going to react. So really, under those circumstances, well, we need to rely on Jehovah, because Jehovah is our stronghold. He's the one that will be able to protect us from, doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah, very true. Brother Lynn?
So in the picture as well, we see it's a similar situation in that the brother is entering into a hostile environment. And as from Jonah's time, it was more so like a physical sort of threat, but this time it's more so of a social threat. So from the flag, we can see it's probably the issue regarding, there's like a big issue regarding progressive freedom in sex and relationships. But often these ones are very superficial and more so regarding conformity. The core idea is it's very shallow and very selfish, and people are more often fearful of being outed out and not agreeing with this idea. And insight can help us to discern past the social pressure and view the situation from an objective point of view. And we can ask ourselves, does focusing on this issue bring me closer to Jehovah? Does a fear of man stop me from following Jehovah's standards? And do I put my trust in the philosophies of men or in God's word?
Very good. And thanks for tying that back to our read scripture as well there in Proverbs 29. All right, well, let's have a look at the last section here, gaining and safeguarding insight. 17, thanks, Brother Dom.
As we have discussed, showing insight can help us to deal with challenging situations successfully. How can we gain more insight? Jehovah is the most important source of insight, and he gives it to his worshippers by means of his word and his Holy Spirit. He provides us with advice that we can use to direct our steps and control our emotions. We gain insight as we carefully consider what the Bible says and prayerfully ask Jehovah for his powerful Holy Spirit. This allows us to have a clearer picture of a matter and to know how best to handle it so that what we say and do reflect Jehovah's thinking.
17, our question, how can we gain more insight? Thanks, Brother Scott.
We can gain more insight through Jehovah. Reading his word and Holy Spirit will provide us with more insight and clarity than any teacher in this world can offer.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks for that. Sister Kreider, please.
And like the psalmist, when we love Jehovah's law and ponder it all day long, we will gain insight into Jehovah's thinking on matters, and this can help us to deal with challenging situations successfully.
Yeah, very good. And what important thing do we want to include in our desire to be helped? Thanks, Sister Abigail.
Proverbs 21:11 says, "When a wise person receives insight, he gains knowledge." The footnote adds, "He knows what to do." This reminds us that insight helps us make wise decisions in our everyday life.
Yeah, very good. And thanks, Brother Gonzalez.
And Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 20 says, Jehovah gives us his Holy Spirit to help us develop insight. And this makes us realize that it's not just enough to simply read the Bible quickly, since we need to meditate on it and ask for help in prayer.
Very good, and that's important, isn't it? That prayerfully asking Jehovah for help. Okay, 18, our last paragraph. Thanks, Brother Dom.
May we continue to seek and highly value the insight we gain from Jehovah. If we do, we will never stray from the way of insight, but we will be more determined than ever to show insight at all times and in every situation. As a result, we will find success.
Thanks so much for your fine reading today, Brother Dom. 18. What are you determined to do? Okay, thanks, Sister Valencia.
Psalm 42 says that Jehovah looks down from heaven on the sons of men to see whether anyone has insight, whether anyone is seeking Jehovah. So if we continuously seek Jehovah and value the insight that we gain from Jehovah himself, we will never stray from the way of insight.
Yeah, very good. So it's so important, isn't it, that we seek that insight if we're going to navigate a successful path in life in this old system particularly. Well, let's have a look at our review points. How can you show insight as Naaman did? Thanks, Sister Shepherd.
Nabal allowed insight to move him to be humble, and he was willing to listen to others. And so we need to have that same spirit to listen to others, to admit that we don't have all the answers to everything and that we need help, especially from Jehovah and his organisation.
Yeah, very good. And Sister Katrupi, please, down the front here.
Before we respond to a matter, such as when we have received some scriptural counsel that we really don't agree with, we should pause for a moment and take the time to consider what we're planning to say or do and whether that reflects pride or humility.
Yeah, very good. So what about the example of David and Abigail? How did that help us to show insight? Thanks, Sister Yongshin.
Abigail did not simply calm David down with a kind word. She helped him to see the situation from Jehovah's viewpoint that required courage, insight, and deep trust in Jehovah. So in the same way today, Jehovah can use a spiritual mature friend to help us when our emotions become overwhelming.
Yeah, very good. And thanks, Sister Cohen.
And from David's case, we can learn that strong emotions like anger, it can cloud our judgment for a while. But when we get reminded of Jehovah's thinking by a mature Christian friend that we had, then just like David could actually reach the conclusion that he had no authority to wipe out an Israelite household, we can also come to a right conclusion by considering Jehovah's view of the matter and the consequences of our words and actions.
Yeah, very good. So real example of the power of insight there in both sides. And then we have the example of Jonah. What do we take away from that? Thanks, Brother McLean.
Yeah, we read Proverbs 29:25, which said, "Trembling in a man is a snare, but the one trusting in Jehovah will be protected." So we can see that throughout the course of the things that happened to Jonah, he realised Jehovah's protective power, that Jehovah would always sustain him. So it's the same too with us, that we may come across opposition, whether, as the illustration pointed out, maybe it's at our school, but maybe it's in other areas of our life. Even in the ministry, we come across opposition, but it's really us relying on Jehovah, and this will help us to have insight in this area.
Yeah, very good. And maybe just a final one from Sister Bisanelli, thanks.
Yes, we need to strengthen our trust in Jehovah now, make time every day to pray, to read portion of the Bible, attend Christian meeting regularly. And this activity will give us the strength we need to fight any persecution courageously, even if come from a family member. That's why the Apostle Paul said, who was often persecuted, wrote, "Jehovah is my helper, I will not be afraid."
Yeah, very good. So some powerful information today that really helps us to see the true value of insight and how important it is, because it connects us to having success, particularly in our spiritual life in serving Jehovah. We want to do what Jehovah wants us to do. We want to follow those righteous principles, and we can only do that by taking in those important things from his word, taking in counsel that we receive. And when we put those things together and we look at a situation, we don't see, what the obvious man will see. We see beyond that. We see how Jehovah can really help us, and that is a true gift that God gives us. So thanks so much for your comments today. That brings us to the end of our program, so we'd like to conclude with a song. And if you'd like to join in singing Song 42, The Prayer of God's Servants, and following that, we'll invite Brother McLean to conclude with prayer for us.